Bolin here.
Oh, yeah.
Just letting you know, support your local artists. Ferric Industries. Very nice stuff. Gave me a really cool hot tub and a statue.
Oh my gosh.
It was me, Nuktuk, hero of the South. Tea. Love tea. Is this poisonous?
Not today.
Not
Hello, Dragon Con goes virtual. Joe Arellanes here, and this is my handsome fiance,
Gaylan Lewallen.
Yeah. So we're here today, tonight, whatever it is in the verse for you, to talk to you guys about Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra things, because we're, thanks, Tea Kettle, avid fans, local Korra here, thank you very much, and this one likes to cosplay Bolin as well. And
Pabu!
Yes, so casual cosplays going on tonight because life is crazy in a pandemic. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and wearing your masks. So yeah, we are gonna answer some questions that I gathered across the interwebs. Oh, Lord. And then we might even talk about some of the ins and outs of the martial arts involved with all the bending styles and the hybrid styles and the advanced techniques seen within specifically blood bending, metal bending, and
Lightning?
thank you, lightning.
Combustion?
No, that's a hybrid.
Oh, that's right.
So,
Republic City.
fans.
Fans!
All right, first up, from Quran. How was Zaheer able to accomplish what no other airbender was able to, despite being an airbender for such a short amount of time? Why was he able to master it so quickly?
Well, I mean, first, he was a very, very good advanced martial artist from the get-go. He was a very good and advanced philosopher from the get-go. He also, that was his natural talent, is being able to understand these deep little connections, and when harmonic convergence happened and it produced the airbending into the world again to like kind of rebalance everything, he got to do this extraordinary thing. And so he had already had like all this natural talent, just boom, 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 and then it just amped it up big time.
I mean, coming from crazy artist background, you read and you study and you practice and you read and you study and you practice and you read and you study and you practice, and then you get the materials. Oh, you're gonna make some awesome stuff really quick. I think that's essentially what happened with Zaheer, that he was an amazing martial artist, a brilliant philosopher, crazy tactician, and then he got bending. It naturally flowed out of him at that point. So
I mean, like, I would have imagined it the same way as like Sokka's sword master. Like, if someone like that caliber had just boom gotten the ability to get bending, like, of course there would be a badass. Same thing. He's a villain and on the villainous side of the story, but he still got this extraordinary gift that then in the story was explained.
Yeah. Ooh, he was crazy sauce.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's super awesome. Next question. Oh boy. Somewhat in the same vein. How was Korra able to master airbending after Amon took her other bending away? It was well established that Amon was using blood bending to turn off the pathways that allow the users to bend. So if water, fire, and earth were closed, why wasn't air? This one comes from Jack. Jack submitted a lot of questions. Thank you, dear Jack. I hope that wine was very good.
Do you want to take this first one?
Yeah, this one's kind of my jam. So, in Avatar: The Last Airbender with Aang, you find out about the chakras and how that was keeping Aang closed off to certain things that he needed to accomplish. And I have a whole other thing I could just say about that guru, because that part of the original show irked me a bit, but it was a great base for the idea of chakras and unlocking things. And so specifically with Korra and the blood bending, I feel it was more about you were forcing the bending to go the other way, that you were just shifting the chakras. And so if Amon was shifting the chakras of bending on a normal bender, it's just one thing. Just shift it, it changes. It's either true or false, on or off. That's it. Everything. Boom. Gone once. With Korra, she had not established any kind of connection with her airbending. There was no chakra connection with her airbending. So when he goes to move everything, to change everything in her, what was on is now off, and what was off is now on. It's just this total shift. And you had mentioned something.
Literary? Well, I mean, for me, I come at it from a story's perspective. I'm an avid tabletop RPGer. I really like the hero's journey and how to describe a story, especially with a group of people. I won't call it a literary perspective, because I know really nothing about how to write, but I do know how to engage a group of people to keep the story going. And for me, it comes from, she started off essentially at level 1, first episode, is this intensely powerful avatar already. She had 3 bendings already under her belt. She was sassy, she had confidence, she had power, she had all these personality attributes and spiritual attributes that then allowed her to go the route that she went. And then when, during the hero's journey, if you guys are ever familiar with that, it's wonderful, look it up. A character needs to hit a low completely, like almost nothing. And then from there, the only place to go is up. And so for her, that was unlocking this ability that she knew she had trouble with by episode 2, which is one of the most badass, best episodes in the entire series, in my opinion, is The Leaf on the Wind. And so she started unlocking all those pieces that she needed to then solve the conflict and solve the issue at hand. But that wouldn't have happened if it was just like, she had airbending at the beginning, she learned it on episode 2, or she got all of it taken away and she just needed to just raw punch somebody in the face. Like, yeah. There's a story's perspective on why she got this, and sometimes that goes very well with canon, sometimes that just goes very well with just how a story progresses, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah. And the other thing is, in the question, it says master airbending. Nah, there was no mastering in that first scene. That was her raw instinct coming out and just muscle memory doing something. Because she was all over the place technique-wise. That she was throwing in stuff that she learned from Bolin and Mako when it came to pro bending with earth and fire. They're straight up boxing some wind. That's not airbending mastery at all. She did, I was about to say Bensao.
Bagua.
Well, no, the front thrust kick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like,
a
she
big
does,
thrust kick.
she just does this huge cross into a front thrust kick. That's no technique of an airbending master.
Yeah.
Great boxing, kickboxing technique, but
It wouldn't be something that they would teach at the circle kind of thing.
Not
and that gets into a different thing of that there are actual legitimate martial arts styles of influence from the first series that they set up, and one reason why I love Korra for this reason is that then they decided to change that and add in different kinds of styles of influence for the second series. Mm-hmm. Hence MMA, boxing, a lot of those tight-knit, fast stuff.
Even a little bit of like flair of b-boys and capoeiristas and things like that show up.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Anyways,
Third
Next
question.
Yes. How could bending in Korra, particularly fire and earth bending, advance so much since Aang? Again, this is from Jack, but I'm going to also bring up another question from Shannon. How did industrialization explode so fast between Aang and Korra? I think these two are very
connected. I mean, for me, this is one of the reasons why I love both series. I've been recently getting into a bunch of arguments on Facebook over why people don't like Korra now that it's out on Netflix and they can watch it. And they have all these issues with it. I love it for the fact that they did this industrialization and this technological renaissance advancement, which is amazing.
Yeah.
The first series was a Tolkien story set in ancient times. It looks just like a lot of the old Chinese stories of Jackie Chan, Jet Li, a lot of Japanese stories of a lot of Akira Kurosawa, and so there's this moment of there's tech, but it fits the time, and they went for a very specific time period, and they had some fun with it too. With how they were portraying the inventor in the first series.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the second series, they wanted this clear renaissance, and to me, that the canon way to explain it in a version of why not? If you really want to add something to a medieval or old world story, add a renaissance, add tech, add crazy ass magic if you're doing a high fantasy place. Add something that builds it up. And so to me, one of the most badacious parts of this show is when you see that scene that Mako's doing the lightning bending into the generators.
Yes.
Because of the raw fact of, if you go to the canon that was set up where Iroh was explaining what lightning means. Lightning is the cold fire. Lightning is the separation of spirits and to emotions. It is just raw energy being pumped out because you can just separate it and compartmentalize. Isn't that what a 9 to 5 is? So to literally have that be the physical representation of lightning bending in the future is being go to the factory, pump out 20 hours a day, or it feels like 20 hours a day, like probably just only about 12, but you're still pumping in the hours. They probably don't have unions. This is pre-union time.
Mako specifically did that to make spare money to get the ante for pro bending tournament.
I mean, he specifically said
that was grunt work he didn't really want to do, but he went and did it anyways.
And then he specifically mentioned I got a shift, as if you had to fight for it.
Yeah.
I imagine a whole bunch of firebenders are sitting out there begging them with pickets pick me, and they're you.
Yeah.
And so industrialization is so sweet. Now I do know that at one point they kind of explained how cars work, where they were using, or maybe I read this somewhere on one of the wikis or something, that they were using steam and water bending to power the cars, and then that's what made Asami's company so awesome, is because they were trying to go away from bending so that way non-benders could use them.
Yes.
And I mean, I know that this is more answering the second question of how and why, but
how could it advance so much in such a short? Well, I mean, that's naturally what happened in our world and reality.
Yeah, if you imagine how penicillin got invented, it just bam.
The industrialization, the Western industrialization, and all that happened so quick, and we've all been tumbling face first forward into the future. Even within the last 50 years with computer technology alone.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, digital Dragon Con. I would never have imagined anything like this whenever I was 5 years old. Hello. So, I mean, how human evolution is insane. That's how.
Yeah. I would say the how and the why is the writers wanted to add something grand, and so they added a cultural and societal shift in storytelling by saying, hey, there's this new stuff.
But most of this is only concentrated really in a Republic City.
That's very
we
true.
Go to Ba Sing Se?
Yeah, it's back. Now, that, I would say, is explained by the fact that the Earth Queen is there. And, like, they still had a cultural shift in the different cities and in the different countries of who was going to be advanced. The monarch of the Earth Kingdom wanted to keep their citizens suppressed. So they had the more badass railways around Ba Sing Se, and there was a shift in tech, but it was so suppressed, and it was very clearly only in the upper ring. And like, there's little pieces of evidence in the canon throughout the show, but all in all, it's the writers wanted to add something to it, and so they added this, and it made the world so much more fleshed out. So, I mean, that's how I feel.
Next one, because obviously we cannot have a conversation about Avatar: The Last Airbender without the fans coming out and there being the two distinct groups. Aang and Katara forever. No! Katara should have been with Zuko! I have some strong opinions about this.
She has strong feelings. I don't necessarily do, except that I liked what they did.
Yeah.
I liked how they ended it. I liked the people they chose. I liked then in Korra but I don't necessarily care. I mean, fan pictures are fun and fan pictures are neat.
Yeah. So I do not particularly care for the Katara and Zuko shipping. And believe me, I've read a lot about like why people like it, and they show evidence, and every time I see any of that, I'm like, that is a beautiful friendship. Can it please stay a friendship between two heterosexual characters that grew up together?
That's true.
There doesn't need to be anything more than that, because I mean...
Yeah. I mean, something that I would reference, and I know this is specifically about Avatar and the Avatar universe, but like one of my favorite shows is 30 Rock with Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin, and one of the main pieces of that show is how those two main characters never ship together. Throughout the entire show, she writes that they have this awesome personal, professional, and mentor-mentee friendship throughout the entire series, even into the very end, last episode, where then they reference that whole joke of like they're about to kiss, and then they're like, nah, this is dumb and weird. I'll see you, Lemon. And like that was awesome, is that they got to show this heterosexual deep friendship that went into all of these different realms with all these different hats.
Yeah. And I mean,
Zuko and Katara can totally keep doing that.
Yeah, and I find that to be far more fascinating and endearing, and from a writer's like level, I want and need that, because I sure as heck know I have amazing friendships with guys in my life, and yeah, it's been confusing for some people. They're like, wait, you guys didn't used to date? No, that is like he is a brother? That would be so weird. Let's not go there.
And the same with female friends.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you didn't try to get in her pants? Like, no. Like, why would I? She's awesome. I wanna. Yeah, and she helps me out.
And if we want to just get past that, like, idealized writing thing, and really look at how those characters would mesh, I think that would have been a very toxic and damaging relationship to both of them. Zuko had a lot of stuff he needed to handle and get over, and obviously he was trying to deal with that a lot, and especially in season 3 of Avatar. Mm-hmm. But trying to have a relationship on top of like dealing with that much internal strife, that's not healthy for anyone in any universe in any time. Like, no. And to then put that on Katara to heal him, literally heal him out of that damage.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel like that would have been a manic pixie dream girl situation.
Absolutely would have.
That's not fair.
No.
Like, you don't want to be the manic pixie dream girl.
No. So yeah. So I do not agree that Katara should have ended up with Zuko. That would have been a really horrible thing, and the Air Nation would not have been resurrected. So there's that. And because whenever I put this call out to friends and internet world, I mentioned, I'm so glad no one's brought up shipping yet. And then one of my friends was like, wait, so how does shipping actually work within the Avatar universe?
Like, Amazon shipping, like
mail shipping,
mail.
Carriers, and so.
I mean, I would say simply that they probably would have had like a Pony Express style stuff, and then clearly and obviously they've already set this up. Trains. They set up the railway so much in the first series with Bossing Say's system that then, Qatar Jr. and Qatar from the Metal Clan, like they set up this intense railway system that then in season 4 becomes this big giant thing of connecting the entire thing. I would say with the technological advancements, trains would have been their main situation. Air would have been their main situation. They ended up having flying machines and zeppelins. Like, why not have a zeppelin? There probably would have been a more natural, like, local way to do it, via animals and Pony Express style for, like, especially Earth Kingdom where it's so spread out, like a central mailing post Wild West style. But I mean, that's just that's just in general. But also, then they
slap it on a sky bison and go.
Right.
Next question. Oh, this one gets deep. Okay, why does Rava get weaker once separating from Vaatu, and by extension, why isn't she able to purify the corrupted spirits? That doesn't seem to keep it in line with the concept of yin and yang. Thank you, Jack, for another question. With Rava and Vaatu, yes, it's a yin and yang concept. Base concept, but it's not really yin and yang.
No.
And so you have to realize that Rava is the positivity and cliché goodness in life, whereas Vaatu is the negativity and darkness. And so when they are separated, it's at a time when humans, the base forms of what Rava and Vaatu gain their energy from, humans are afraid of Rava, afraid of spirits, afraid of all of that. So they're not going to give her any positivity or light or help or assistance. She's doing it all on her own. And because the humans are afraid and all those other things, Vaatu is just growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a virus. He's this spiritual virus that goes around Juan's world. And Juan is the only one that takes the time to understand the spirits and eventually bonds with Rava and gives her a new way to procure that energy through life, is allowing a human to stand in, to be a physical form for her, to channel the goodness and kindness and balance and all these other things. So that's why she was getting smaller and Vaatu was getting bigger.
I mean, with the yin and yang ideas, there's a skeleton base, but I always saw it as a different kind of mythology reference. There's always that like darkness, demon aspect, and the angel and light side, and like one can't exist without the other. There's a candle, and the candle produces a shadow, but without the candle, there is no shadow. Without the shadow, there is no light. Like, it's just all darkness. Like, so there's like that shows up in tons of mythologies, real and fictional. That's the relationship I always saw with it. While yin and yang is there because it's also very Asian and Asian influence, and they instilled that already from the get-go with Avatar and Aang's story. There's other kinds of stories. There's other kinds of influences of especially metaphysical philosophies like
and
that.
The names Rava and Vaatu are coming from a completely different pantheon.
Yeah.
So that's getting closer to like Hindu references, a different Eastern religion, and so you're dealing with karma and destiny and things like that in a very different way when you get into like Hindu pantheons. To answer the second part of it, why wasn't Rava able to purify the corrupted spirits? That was never her job. Juan was the one doing that, not Rava. That was a skill of the humans, that when a human was calm, when a human balanced their emotions and put out happiness and light in the world, the spirits would calm. The spirits were always reacting to the humans. It was never Rava. It was never really Vatu. It was the energy from the humans creating the positive, the light or dark spirits. So, there's that one. All right. Kitty is asleep. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Since Toph used earthbending to see, which was instrumental in the development of metal bending, now how do you think other benders of various disabilities might innovate the elements? This was done by Ian. I love this question, mainly because Toph was one of the main characters that, she had a particular disability, and the disability did not own her. But also, it did not have to be the adjective that was the only part of that character. That was a small detail, and I know it's hard to describe for me because I don't have any disabilities, but I do know people with disabilities, and this is how they've described it to me: is that they don't want to be identified as just that. Like, I'm not the blind kid. I have blindness, and that's one way that you show respect for them that way. And so when you write a story based with stuff like that, tiptoe around that, or do it really well, or get people who advise. Advisors. Consultants.
There we go, that's the word.
So, earthbending was used by Toph's seismic ability to hit the ground and sense things around her, and that's how she found metal, the earth particles inside metal. Mm-hmm. Are there other ways that could do that? I think so, honestly.
Well, the thing is, it's the idea of someone with a specific kind of disability can advance bending styles. But we see that all the time.
Well, we also see that in Legend of Korra.
Yeah. Well, also within Avatar first, because, all of the advancements that the non-benders technically did with air bending.
That's true. Okay, so that's first. But I was thinking Ming-Hua.
Well, combustion bending. He shows up, the crazy combustion dude shows up. I feel like, and this is, it might be me going out on a limb, but he didn't talk much. He was a bit of a recluse and seen as an outsider, so to figure out something like mental concentration combining air and fire bending to create combustion, I feel like he had to have been on the spectrum somehow.
Possibly.
To do that.
Yeah, totally.
that is a total leap of my own, just that's how I feel about it.
Well,
because he was super unique.
Yeah, but they didn't really go into it, so we don't know.
No.
But I would say Ming-Hua using her water bending to there are clear pictures. I'm pretty sure they're not fan pictures, but there's a fun family photo picture of the rebellious group, the Red Lotus group, and she totally has arms.
Yeah.
And
no, that is canon. At some point, she loses them. And
so then she uses her water bending to do that.
So water bending as prosthesis.
Yeah.
But
then
she was so amazing.
But okay. So then also, I would say, yeah, no, you could totally use name a disability, and that's what's hard is name a disability, and I could totally think of a way to use all four of the elements to then just work around it.
Yeah.
Now, whether do you think that can happen? Yes.
Yeah.
Examples of we have limited.
Yeah. We can pull from small moments in the show, and it's just like you said. If this was more live and interactive, totally take an idea and spitball it to be yeah, you could totally find ways that it's about someone just having the right mindset, confidence, and ingenuity to figure it out. And it's been demonstrated time and again in the show that heck yeah, they're gonna figure these things out.
Yeah, and so if that's make a stone fake leg or what,
constantly earthbending as prosthesis, and
But I mean, in general, there are. Then that's where I think the technological advancement, industrialization, also then came in. Is you don't necessarily have to use bending. You could use medical and industrial advancements to then help with that. Like, I'm an avid fan of Full Metal Alchemist. So, at what point is it a stretch to say that then in the Avatar universe, they would invent automail, like the actual, if they can invent radio, then what stops them from inventing nerve hookups and using actual crazy ass prosthetics that then you can move with your brain
and it could take a bender with issues getting the technology to that point of combining the non-bender tech with the bender tech.
Because then, I would say then, the idea that you had never really seen liquid metal before, at least in this universe, even though, wasn't that supposed to be Mercury?
Yeah.
So, Mercury, and then they pull it out of her, and it becomes this important piece of like, oh yeah, the different states of these different elements can then come into play with like, what can you bend? Like, at what point could you do like, I'm gonna bend the wires, like super thin wires, into you and hook it up into these spots and use like a whole team of metal benders and healing water benders to then like do high-powered brain surgery on somebody.
Yeah.
Totally.
Endless possibilities. So now that we're like getting heavy into the bending stuff, so this question's a little mixed up. What is the subcategory for airbending? And Ricky specifically gave the fire to lightning, earth to metal, water to blood. So not subcategory. Lightning, metal, and blood are the advanced forms of bending. Subcategories are when they start blending. Like sand,
I would say that.
Marsh, lava, combustion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I love this idea.
Yeah.
I wanted to come up with an Avatar universe role-playing game, and so I had to try to research this, and I wanted to on my own, and then I ran it for a group of kids
so much fun.
in the summer. One of these recent summers, and they had tons of fun. And they, of course, asked me about this, so I had to figure out, like, mechanically, how does that work? And I found this wonderful chart that showed a diagram of when you have a particular element, and they put it on north, south, east, and west. Then you've got the middle subs that connect. They require philosophical and academic merging of these two elements, technique-wise and just metaphysical-wise, to figure it out. So, like, lava was fire and earth. You had to understand the passion, and then this is where I came in, where it's not just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, it's fire and earth, but it's also what do they represent based on the canon. And you can, of course, change this, because I did a little bit based on the game. But, fire represented emotion. Earth represented stability and concreteness. And so, how would you bend that? So Kazan, bending an element like lava, he was conviction incarnate with his, I'm going to be this atheist, crazy, rebellious anarchist, and then but then he was adapting so fast with this crazy emotion of like, we need to hit here, so yeah, it makes total sense that he bends lava.
But then Bolin, whenever he discovers he's a lava bender, he's still harnessing, because he's an earthbender, his brother is a firebender, so he has intimate knowledge of like what that is. But in that moment when he figured out lava bending, it's because his emotions was 100% geared towards protection.
Yeah, so he had a concrete goal in mind, very earth, very stable, very I know that waterbenders are community oriented, but so on Earth, they're an empire.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like, that makes sense. And then to me, combustion.
Holy.
Combustion's cool. It's the mix of air and fire.
Yeah.
So you gotta have the freedom, the spiritual,
Nomad
qualities, but also the spiritual, like, philosophical qualities mixed with emotion, which seems like a crazy ass oxymoron, but you notice there's only 2 of those people alive.
Yeah. And
we don't know much about.
And those
marks, and then the marks.
The spiritual mark on the third eye, like.
Yeah, like, what does that mean? I ended up making that on my own and came up with this entire backstory of who the first combustion bender was, but I had to pull from this lore of this weird catch-22 of how are you emotionally passionate without attachment. And you know, that might be insanity or whatever you want to call it, but like different people, different strokes, stuff like that. But yeah, no, lightning and metal
and blood
are refinement. They are finding. I think of things mechanically because of games. Mechanically, they still take the main principles of that element and expand on it, versus taking 2 different principles and going, how do I find this connection? Can connect the dots in between. That makes sense.
To answer the original question of what's that advanced form, what's the most
of airbending?
Airbending.
Well, flight.
So a lot of people default to flight, but I think it's something different. I think it's the void.
Yes.
How Zaheer murdered the Earth Queen. He was about to say Empress. I think that's actually the advanced form. Because.
Well, hold on.
So absolute pure freeform flight, like, yes, there's this beautiful, like, moment in the show whenever he's like, I have mastered air, and he just takes off flying.
Well, but the void part is not, I don't think, is the thing that he did to the Earth Queen is just suck the air out of her.
So you have, like, similar to bloodbending, you have full control over the life and body of someone by adding or removing the element from them.
Oh, no, that's fair in that definition. But to me, that wasn't a special power. To me, that was like the dim locked. Like, that was just a technique that no one really thought of, because
airbenders would not do that.
Yeah, airbenders learned to be pacifists, and it's why I, as a martial artist, love Zaheer's fighting style, as it's an all aggressive attacking airbending style, which means I think that's just the intention behind that technique is totally what you're talking about. That's how I feel. Okay. And then flight then comes from that as well. That's an advanced technique that the gurus came up with.
All right.
But the reason why you got there is because of the void.
Yeah.
I had to let go literally and metaphysically of earthly attachments, and now I can actually fly.
Yeah, and it's not on just like a little puff cloud that like fades or a ball that whizzes.
Like, no, that was full blown Superman.
Like, I'm just going to fly across the world. I don't need a sky bison. I don't get tired.
Like Clark Kent style, man. That was insane. That's how I feel.
So, next question comes from Aaron. Why was it so much harder for Aang, who was far more in touch with the spiritual side of his avatar nature, to access the avatar state, than Korra, who notoriously struggled with her spiritual self?
Do you want to take this? Talking a while.
I have strong feelings again. So Aang was raised in a far more spiritual culture, but that did not automatically make him more spiritual. Aang, the entire point of this show and story was Aang ran away. He didn't want to accept what he was. And that meant rejecting his spiritual side and his nature and everything about himself when he ran away. So I don't think he was as connected to his spiritual self as a lot of people assume. The society he grew up in, yeah, he was a monk, he was devout, he was vegetarian, and okay. That doesn't automatically make you completely spiritual or connected with yourself. And that's the biggest thing about the avatar state, is they have to be connected to themselves, and thus their past lives and all of those things. And so again, at Jump, at a very young age, Korra understood, like, I'm the avatar. I can do all of these things. I'm the only one who can do this. I know who I am. I 100% fully accept everything about being the avatar. You gotta deal with it. So I think even as a child, Korra was much closer to that spiritual side of herself because she was ready to be the avatar. And each new avatar has to deal with the consequences of their predecessor's actions. And like, so much about Korra's story is her sweeping up the mess left by Aang in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Controversial statement, I'm sorry.
But it's true, because if you want to try to argue that, then I'm going to go with Exhibit A. Literally the entire concept of the entire first season of Avatar is Roku saying, you've got to deal with my consequences of all of my actions.
Yeah. I did these things, I'm sorry, you know how to clean up the mess.
Like, that's the point.
Roku had to do that for Kyoshi.
And then Kyoshi had to do that
for Kuruk?
Kuruk. Or maybe Yang-Chen.
No, Kuruk was after Yang-Chen, then Kuruk.
Right, Yang-Chen, Kuruk, Kyoshi,
yeah,
Roku. But
anyways, sorry.
Like, they have to deal with that. Like,
yeah.
So if you call yourself a purist and you're gonna say like, no, that's not true, blasphemy, like, sorry, it's in your canon that you find Bible.
But so, Aang and Korra both struggled their specific way with connecting to their avatar state. Korra was much older than Aang when she finally got access to it. That's facts. Aang had to go through some really traumatic stuff to finally get access to it.
Same with Korra.
Like, both of those situations were horrific and terrible things for anyone to live through, no matter their age or anything like that. So, and it might be that there is always something major that has to happen to the avatar to trigger that avatar state for the first time so they can make that connection, because it's once you're at your lowest low, you can build back up again, or whatever the quote is that Aang says.
At your lowest point, you are the most acceptable to change.
That one. He's better at the memorization.
So it's true.
Yeah. So, and also, Korra's entire story, specifically season 1, season 2, and season 3, is dealing with the spirit. Well, no, see, like, it's all of her story is dealing with the consequences of the spirit world and all of those things. So, I mean, her destiny as her incarnation of the Avatar is to balance out the spiritual problems caused by the original Avatar Wan. So, it was just about time that it rolled around that someone swept up the mess of 167 avatars? 66 avatars?
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. Hope that helped. Oh, this one's fun. Lewis asked, was Uncle Iroh really going to allow Zuko to capture Aang?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question.
That's a great question.
I feel like, personally, yes and no. Like, yes, he would allow him to get him, but then when it was time to make, like, it was just going to prolong that question of who are you and what do you want? Like, that iconic scene is going to push that boundary of when, at what point was he going to have that conversation with him? Now, it would have been really interesting to see if that had been earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And most likely, Korra probably would have happened differently, and a lot of things would have happened differently. But, I mean, that was kind of Iroh's thing, is it's got to happen in its due time for reasons, very serendipitous, very destiny, fate, any of those ideas that you want to believe in. That was his thing, but, like, Zuko's path, redemption arc, which is, by the way, one of the most beautiful things in writing ever. The Banished Prince is insane. It needed to happen in its time, and so if we wanted to like imagination, just come up with like what would have happened if Aang had actually been captured during the Blue Spirit episode and then brought to the ship, and like now let's play.
I think Iroh would have told him about being a part of the White Lotus.
Maybe not that much. Probably would have told him more about being. I mean, maybe, but I think he would have definitely started with like. So you gotta pose a question, which is the like, you and him are like relatives, like
Kind of. Yes.
I need you, like yeah, like it would have been interesting. I think that he would have proposed the question and the conflict of, you two are related, your problems stem from his previous life, like a lot of things,
Yeah.
and also your dad is a complete jerk.
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean, but for me, it's Iroh was part of the White Lotus, and they were established to always protect the Avatar.
mm-hmm.
And I think him, beyond the surrogate father figure that Iroh played in Zuko's life, he was definitely abiding by that inclination.
True.
And his subversive orders amongst the White Lotus of you gotta protect the Avatar if he really exists. That
True.
like once
He probably would have been like, yo dog,
so
I'm
part of the
this
White
secret
Lotus, I'm supposed to
organization.
protect the Avatar, and guess what? The last one was your grandpa. Sorry, spoilers.
And also if you like,
And so do you
really
really
wanna
want to
go
hand
this
over
way.
your new-ish grandpa to your dad? Like, this isn't gonna go well for anyone. So
I don't know.
I think
Would have been interesting.
I think he would have let Zuko capture him, but not turn him over to Fire Lord Ozai.
Right.
Oh no, we're on the last question.
I can still ramble.
I know, so can I. Why didn't the Dai Li cover or otherwise dispose of the drill in the weeks before the king found it? That is a very specific question.
I think because it was really big.
It was huge! That was a hot mess! The thing was
And
giant!
and honestly, I think they were trying.
Also, the Dai Li just would take people and it doesn't exist. There is no war in Ba Sing Se.
There is no war in Ba Sing Se.
There is no drill outside of Ba Sing Se.
I mean, and the literal answer of this question, it's really big, and I fully believe they were trying.
Yeah, I don't think they could have just gotten rid of it that easily.
Well, I mean, they didn't. And it's not about could they or couldn't they. They didn't. But with the intentions behind the police force of this capital city, when you see that the Earth King gets brought out and shown, like, there's people working on it. I feel like they were trying, but it had literally broken through the outer wall.
Yeah.
It means it was inside the mile-long, rock wall that it was, or whatever, and, like, I think they tried.
Yeah.
They couldn't. It was also metal at that time.
They couldn't do anything
about metal. You would have literally had to dismantle it.
Yeah.
I mean, and everything leading up to that point showed how powerful that thing is.
The Fire Lord had definitely kept technology and everything reined in around the world, and he was hoarding all of the advancements, which also limited a lot of things.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I think they tried, and so they used their skills that, with the mind brainwashing to like do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
but so yeah.
Well, I mean, then there's we could do the questions about.
No.
Oh no!
You spilled the tea.
I'm so sorry. Briefly, if you're not aware, the creators hired a consultant, martial artist, a real martial artist, to consult them on what should be the martial art styles of influence of the bending styles.
Mm-hmm.
And so the four main ones were, water was Tai Chi, and there are many sects of Tai Chi.
Yeah.
So to say
schools and
Tai Chi
family,
is me kind of going
saying,
against my
I live in the United States.
yeah, but it's kind of me going against my martial arts thing of like being super general. But like, which one specifically? And I'd have to do some like super research. But Tai Chi, airbending was influenced by Bagua, a specific kung fu.
Yeah.
Fire was White Crane Kung Fu,
Mm-hmm.
and Earth was a wonderful style called Hungar. And it's super big, and so martial arts wise, like these things are amazing. They had very specific, and then of course individual characters had different styles. Like I find that Toph was very Wing Chun like. If you've ever seen that,
well, no, she gets into the inward stance.
That's true, and I mean other styles do that as well, but like it was just the way that she moved, and it was very
compact nature.
But they never specifically said what her style influence was.
But if you think about like the original, like the
the
woman
original
who created Wing Chun was this small petite woman that lived in a huge city and made this style to protect herself and to teach other women to protect themselves
with a disability,
yeah,
bound feet and everything. But they never officially say. And then there's other kinds like the Foggy Swamp, but benders were very similar to their
the windmill.
Yeah, the windmill. But by the way, if you've ever seen that scene, which I assume you have since you're watching this, that is
a technique.
That is a legitimate technique in especially wushu.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it comes from past that. But yeah, that idea of like these swirling big, like you got to keep your fist tight.
You have
or the blood rushes to your fingers and
you'll
blood blisters and stuff.
You'll pop the ends of your fingers. You'll actually, so on a smaller level, you see the same windmilling effect in boxing, kind of old school, not modern boxing, but if you ever watch like older matches and everything, you see someone like start slinging their fist around, it's because they're slinging blood into their hands to make it heavier, to hit harder. Same thing's happening in that Wing Chun moment, or not Wing Chun,
Foggy Swamp moment.
Yeah, Foggy Swamp style. So anyways, it's a legitimate technique. It looks silly.
That's just Avatar. Then you've got the crazy advancements in Korra where like they go into it. That like Korra does the big stances punch, and he's like, that was awesome, great form. It'll get you knocked out. So you gotta like tighten up, boxing style, MMA style, like Muay Thai style. Like it changes, and then they're still flipping and things because it's fun and it's fantasy, but there's still influence.
Yeah, and the grappling, specifically the grappling stuff that you see in the pro bending matches.
Oh yeah, when Bolin during the pre-championship fight, Bolin is going against the armadillos.
Yeah.
And they're doing the one-on-one fight on top, and he specifically grabs him and starts to flip him.
And the guy does a reversal, and then he counters. From technique standpoint.
But also like Kuvir's fighting style, and a lot of these other crazy examples of modern and old martial arts being done. It's not fake. It's got some kernels of truth. They're really cool. And so if you do find that interesting, like there are people out there who will teach it.
Yeah.
See if there's one near you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Martial arts is so much fun. You've been doing it for a long time.
Yes. So yeah, he is, by day he is a martial arts teacher here in Little Rock, Arkansas. So that's
Kids,
why
adults.
We're both kind of passionate about that part. And so yes, it's fun to see martial arts represented so accurately and beautifully in traditional 2D animation, because you don't see it anywhere.
Yeah,
you see like flashy bits and like whoosh lines and special effects and
Well, and I mean, just in general, the animation, the way you would draw that is you can do so many tiny little segments of it and then go and move it really fast, and it looks like shing, 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 shing.
Yeah.
But that was like, they spent the time to actually show. Boom, boom,
yeah.
like hand movements, hand positions, foot positions.
But in the differences in like, what kind of sword are you using? Two-handed, dual-wield, single, like, the
Yeah.
meteorite sword versus like the blue spirit sword, like his broadswords, like all of that's very well done and referenced extremely accurately. We could spend a whole nother hour just talking about the martial arts.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you so much for joining us. You can find me on Instagram, Little Star Girl. That's my handle over there.
I have Instagram, but I don't know what it is.
It's okay. I'm far more active online. So, yes, thank you for joining us here on Dragon Con Goes Virtual. Please stay safe out there, everyone, and have a great whatever time of day it is for you. Bye.